Hello everybody, this is Dawn Reby from Excellence in Analytics, and today we are talking about how to nail that interview. So we're going to focus on crime analysis, how to nail the crime analysis interview, but the reality is you can use these tips for any interview that you have. All right, so far too often in our programs, we see analysts who are nervous or getting excitable or just not really prepared well for the actual job interview. So today I'm going to give you exactly what you need to do. I mean, a step by step of what you need to do to be fully prepared for your job interview. So we're going to talk about the interview today, and then check out our other videos to learn how to go find the right job for you, how to, get the right job for you, how to position yourself so that you actually are the one chosen. But for today, I'm going to give you everything you need to know about preparing for a job interview in crime analysis. So the first thing, be prepared. Here's what you need to do to be prepared for this interview. So you're going to have a little notebook and you're going to write things down ahead of time. Okay, ahead of time. Write things down ahead of time. And here's some of the key things that you want to know. When you research for your job interview, you want to know the chief's name. You want to know the chief's name, the chief's mindset, philosophy, how long that chief, he or she, has been there for. What are some of the key important factors that they're trying to initiate at the police department or sheriff's office? Are they trying to implement data-driven strategies? Are they more of a reserved chief, more of a, energized, fast-going chief? You want to know these things. So do your research. Go to the police department's website and know your chief that you're going to be working for. Go to the social media. Most police departments have a social media website at this point. Go to the social media, know your chief, know what's important to that chief. Because often the things that are important to that chief are going to be written out in social media. So if community is important, they'll be plastered all over Facebook, or whatever social media outlet that you're working with, right? So get to know your chief and what the priorities of that chief are. Media, newspapers, social media, and the website. Those are great opportunities to start. So the second thing is research the community. How big is your community? Is it 100,000 people? Is it 500,000 people? How big is that community? Because the type of analysis that you do will be different for different sizes of communities. It'll also be different for different types of communities. Sometimes, a rural analyst versus a suburban analyst. It'll be very, very different in the types of crimes or social harms you have to target, right? For instance, if you're working for an inner city, you're probably going to have some of the bigger problems. You're going to have, breaks into motor vehicles. You're going to have burglary. You might have some gang issues and so forth. But if you're applying to a smaller agency, some of the things that might be important to that agency might be a little bit different. There might be some disorderly, some graffiti, some more social harms that might be relative and particularly of interest, maybe traffic crashes and that kind of thing. So get to know what's important, get to know the size of that community, the type of community it is. And another thing you want to research is how many sworn officers do you have and how many positions are vacant, right? So you want to know how big is your force. So if you're going to work for, say, the Baltimore County that has something like 1,200 police officers, that's a heck of a lot different than working for a police agency where you are the solo analyst, right? Maybe there's, 50,000 people and, maybe, 75 officers, right? So understand what you're getting into, understand the difference between the types of communities and the number of officers that you will be serving. So that's something else that you want to study. You want to study the history of the agency that you're coming to. If there's been any political backlash, if there's been any kind of big things in the newspapers, anything going on that you should be aware of relative to that police department, you want to know. You want to be able to ask intelligent conversations in your interviews. So when you can really, see in the newspaper that they had a big, say, copper theft bust, you want to be able to talk about that. It shows that you're paying attention. It shows that they are important to you and that you're not just there to throw spaghetti on a wall and get whatever job is available, right? You want to provide value from the moment you walk through that door, whether or not you get the job. That gotta be your mission, okay? And, one of the other key things that you want to really focus on in preparing for this is looking to see if there's any partners you know. Have you ever been to a conference? Have you ever been to, an event or any kind of relationships that you have built where you know someone who might work in or around that police department? So let's say you want to work for a big city like Boston, but you don't know anybody in Boston. Well, maybe you would go to the outskirts of Boston and see who you know and who could connect you for a coffee date or something of that nature where you can get to know that person and that agency a little bit better. Another key thing that you want to research is the actual analytical unit itself. So does the agency, and this is a big issue I see with analysts, is they walk in and they're just happy to get a job, right? But they walk in and they don't really know what's truly expected of them. So you want to ask some key questions in your interview. You want to really understand the dynamics of the physical crime analysis unit itself. Is it brand new? Are you the one implementing the entire infrastructure? Is it something that is widely adopted by this agency already? Are the concepts of data-driven strategies already at this agency? Or are you the one to bring it to them? So, you want to make sure that you are understanding, am I a part of a team? Am I an individual analyst? Like, what's this going to look like on my day-to-day? Because if you're an individual analyst, chances are the police agency is quite small and you're going to have to do a lot of work in the buy-in arena, right? If your agency is a larger agency and they have a fully functioning, maybe real-time event center or a crime analysis unit, or maybe even a statistical department or a strategic planning unit, it's going to look a lot different for you. You're going to be able to tap into other people who are there and really get that culture relatively quickly. So you got to really decide what you want. And we're going to get into how to choose the police department to actually go for a job interview for, right? In the future. So check out those videos that are coming down your pike. But for right now, really understanding the agency that you are going to work for, really understanding and making sure that you know who the mayor is, who are the aldermen, what do they stand for, what's happening in the states overall that you need to be aware of. Because when you go on these job interviews, you want to have intelligent conversation. You want to be able to say, okay, what is your vision of success? What does that look like? So we're going to get into more tips on what to actually say during the interview. But today it was all about prepping for that interview. Building your confidence is another key step, okay? A lot of times folks stumble on their words as they're in these job interviews. So what you want to do is you want to prepare yourself. And I'm going to give you some tips right now on how to actually do that. So here's one of the most famous ones that has helped me forever and ever and ever, and I will share it with you now. It is the rule of three. The rule of three. This is where you decide ahead of time the three things that you feel so great about talking about that they're always going to be in your back pocket. And I'll give you an example. One of the things that I'm really, really good at is systems. I can look at, kind of what's going on, and I can identify ways to improve efficiencies. I can really look to see how to optimize, how to reduce the amount of time spent on something, and really create systems of flow, systems of, analytical flow, right? So that's one of the things that I can do very well. I can look at, a system and say, if we implement Microsoft Access, you can automate a lot of this, right? Or if you, if we do a productivity audit, we can really start to identify where the gaps exist in productivity and how we can tighten up some of those policies and procedures, right? And some of those processes. So efficiency strategies is one of the things that I generally talk about in an interview and in conversations around building analytical capacity. Another thing that I would say one of my threes, right, that I talk about is partnerships. And this is something that analysts don't talk a lot about, and we really, really need to. Partnerships are critical in quality analytics. So sit and write down a list of all the people that you would partner with should you work for that agency. So let's say the agency is in Texas. You definitely want to partner with TextLean, which is the networking group of analysts in the area, right? Throughout the whole United States and actually internationally, we have the International Association of Crime Analysts, IACA. So in that, we have subsets of analysts, right? So the Massachusetts Association of Crime Analysts covers New England and a little bit above and a little bit below. Texas, TextLean covers their general area of California. There's different ones in California that cover different sections of California. So the number one thing I would say is, who am I going to partner with, right? So those analysts, those police agencies are top on my list. Who's part of that network? Who understands this? Who's part of this, right? And so, being able to say, okay, I would partner with, this police department, this analytical unit who's going to nurture us, who's going to build relationships so we can exchange information, who's going to provide education and so forth, is really going to help. So partnerships is a really big deal. Partnering with probation, with parole, with sex offender registry people, if it might be separate from you. Who are the other partners that you could? The city, right? So IT maybe, or your GIS department at your agency. At your city, if it's not within your agency. So really thinking about partnerships, that's something that I always talk about, right, when I go to these interviews. And then the third thing, right, so coming up with 3 things that you always talk about. And so being able to have something that you go back to during these interviews, and check out our other videos on how to interview, right, like what to say and how to be. But preparing for it means you write down the 3 things that you are so comfortable about talking to and talking about, that when you go for these job interviews, you could always relate something back to a quality, well-developed idea. And here's how that could work, right? So let's say, you are on this job interview and someone's asking you, what's the first thing that you're going to do? What are you going to do? And I would think, okay, what are my 3 things? Efficiency strategies, partnerships, and then my third thing. So I would immediately get into, I would know the data inside and out. So I would see what systems are set up, where I can access the information, right? Number 2, I would analyze, maybe the last 3 to 5 years of data and get a sense of what's going on in this community. Number 3, I would partner. I would meet every maybe captain or whatever in the agency, depending on the size of the agency, to really understand how I can best support them. And that kind of thing. So when you have your 3 things to talk about, it's very easy to draw conversation from those 3 things. It's very easy to answer questions, because the reality is, you can really tie in a lot of those analytical questions back to the 3 things, even if you don't know the answer to the analytical question that they're asking you. So if they say to you, have you ever worked with, this particular vendor? You might want to say, no, I have not worked with that particular vendor. And then you'd be like, oh my gosh, are they upset with me? Am I not saying the right thing? But when you pull it back to one of your 3 things that you prepared for ahead of time, you might say something like this. You might say, yeah, I'm not familiar with that particular vendor. However, I have worked with systems. And one of the key things I would do would be to identify where I get my data, if I can make any efficiency improvements, and yada, yada, yada. So when you prepare with those things, when you prepare with knowing the community, knowing the chief's name, knowing the mayor, knowing the alderman, knowing the key partners and players and stakeholders in the community, and also knowing what value you can provide. So that's the last piece of this, right? So just to kind of recap here, we're talking about being prepared, so you know the community, the officers, all of that stuff, and you know your 3 things that you can always talk about. Right? And so you really want to be prepared to answer questions and to determine how you are going to provide value. That's the last piece of this. So especially if you're a new analyst and you're walking in and you're like, oh gosh, I'm just new. I'm just here to learn. They don't need to hire you just to go learn everything, right? The reality is we're all learning. I've been in this business for 25 years and I'm still learning, right? We're always learning. That's just expected. That's part of it. We're always learning and growing. But what's key is that you are able to tell them what value you are going to bring to them. And here's what it could look like, right? So thinking about what value can I bring? So let's say you're, right out of college, or maybe you've had an analyst job for a couple of years, but you kind of look like you're doing non-analyst things, right? So you got to sit down and say, what can I bring? What value can I deliver? And you might come up with a lot of things. Hey, I'm organized. I'm good at finding efficiencies. I'm energized. I'm interested in studying, criminal behavior and doing predictions. So getting clear on the value that you're going to bring to the agency, right, is really, really key. So here's how that could look, right? So I start thinking about the value that I can bring around organization, around collecting information and making it digestible, like compiling it and then analyzing it and making it digestible so that our commanders can actually use it to make quality decisions, right? So if they say, why should we hire you? You can go back to that thing and you say, well, you know what? I'm right out of college. I'm super energized. I bring a breath of fresh air, some new strategies that maybe your, analysts in the past who've been there for a while haven't heard of, things that I've learned I can bring. I'm really great at mapping. I'm really great at, critical thinking. I'm really great at identifying whatever it is that you're really great at. You share that, right? Because when you provide value, that's what a police department is looking for. They will take energy, enthusiasm, and desire to grow beyond knowledge, right? So knowledge will get you so far, but it's your attitude, it's your energy, it's what you want to provide value, how you want to provide value, the ability to know that you can provide value, right? So it's all those things. That kind of energy is so attractive. So you've got to position yourself, even if you don't have a lot of experience. You have to position yourself as energized, eager, and willing to work. All right. So those are some key tips to really help you prepare for a job interview in crime analysis. We're going to dig into actually how to apply, like which ones to apply for, and then what to do on the job interview, and then what to do after the job interview a little bit later. But for right now, soak this up. Press rewind if you have to, pause, whatever you have to do, and really zone in on what do I know about the community and the chief and the agency? What are my 3 superpowers, right? And then how do I provide value? What questions, what value can I bring to them, all right? So those are the ways to prepare, build that confidence, step up. You can provide value. You are good enough to do this. You got to be willing to work. No one's going to hold your hand. You got to be able to do it for yourself. So that's all we have today. See you next time.